Ready, dude?
I'm ready.
Let's.
But are you ready? It's your show.
I've got a deck for you, Andy.
Okay, what is it?
So Vaevictis, as you put it, Basmati rice.
Basmati rice dragon.
Vaevictis Asmati the Dyer. But before we get into them, I kind of want to like chat with you, I guess, about a principle I think that we've kind of been talking about this week a little.
Okay.
Which is the idea of making sure that you build decks so that they do what you intend them to do, as in your cards that you choose for your deck are there to go towards the ends that
you mean just like being smart with the card picks? Or?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So the reason I bring this up is when you've got a new commander like Vaevictis is,
yeah,
there's sort of this like it's not crowdsourced yet fully. Like there's still people trying to figure it out and crack the code and figure out what to do with them.
The hive mind hasn't.
Yeah, like you can't.
It.
Yeah, exactly. You can't go to the hive mind, siphon off a deck list, and be good. Like you're still kind of trying to solve it. And so I think this is a period with deck building where people can be particularly prone to picking cards that don't fit what they're trying to do in terms of their strategy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like I feel like I've had that kind of happen where I've tried to make a deck from something without a lot of community like focus on it.
Sure.
Right. Like I think the original Inala lists, like a lot of them were kind of off the rails a little bit.
Oh, right.
You know? A lot like Maresil was another one, like just from the same deck. Like there was a lot of put all the activated abilities in those colors.
Oh, yeah.
Eventually, I think you kind of fall into like, okay, these are the combos that seem to make better sense.
Exactly.
But that one had potential just to go off the rails.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I kind of think when I'm looking at Vaevictis, there's sort of I think there's like 30 decks on EDH Rec right now. And so I see a couple different themes emerge like that are sort of there, but they're kind of intermingling together. And so if you're just looking at EDH Rec, it's sort of like, I don't know. I think it's really easy to just throw all that stuff in. You're like, oh yeah, I can see that being good. I can see that being good. But to me, I think it's important to sort of say to yourself when you're building a deck, particularly with a new commander, what am I trying to accomplish?
When you deck build, do you go over like the 99? Do you have like a bunch of like, you get everything you possibly could think of and then do cuts?
I really try to keep myself to 100. So basically what happens, I guess, let me kind of like put it together. I will put in the staples that I know I need to use.
Right.
My land count.
Mm-hmm.
And I usually assume I'm going to be 35 or 36 with most decks. And then I'll start putting in things that you need to have, like removal.
Yeah.
And card draw and all that kind of stuff, ramp, those types of things. And then I'll fill myself up to 100. And then I'll keep studying a deck out. But then if I find cards that I think would be effective in the strategy,
okay,
I have to make a cut. So, okay, I got to go find something.
But you're not like at 120.
Yeah, I'm not going to go to 120 and then cut it. I'm like, I'm at 100. I found a new card that I think is going to be really good. I got to go find what card's leaving to make room for this card.
Yeah. Okay.
And if I find, then I think that kind of presents the question of, is this card better than the stuff I already have in the deck? And if it is, then cool.
Yeah.
We'll make that cut. And
I feel like that methodology is better because it asks you to be more conscious about the card decisions.
Yeah.
And honestly, making cuts just takes forever. Like you see like people asking for help online for decks and it's, like they're up to like 120 cards or something. And it's like, dude, and they don't even have their lands allocated. Like that's like the first thing I do is like, all right, well, 35 to 38 is going to be, those slots are already taken. They're not going to be considered. So I load that in kind of like what you do. And then the ramp, the 10 spots I want for ramp at the minimum, depending on the CMC of my curve.
Sure.
And then, yeah, the card draw, like all these things are eaten up already, you know. But you kind of develop an intuition for stuff that just needs to happen with a commander. But without it, I'm just like,
yeah. And so Vaevictis as an example, like I think you can tweak your deck building template a little bit because he gives you some card advantage.
Yeah. In a roundabout way.
And so in a sense, like you can, and he also does removal. So you can probably play around with the level of spot removal that you have and card draw with this guy. So obviously like that fluctuates, but I kind of, yeah, I have that basic template that I go by with building decks.
Okay.
But full circle, making sure that you have cards that go towards your strategy. I think it's really important to understand what your strategy is. And
so what's a card that like you see somebody picking for the basmati rice?
Yeah,
that doesn't really necessarily.
So where I'm going with is that like I guess the Crucible of Worlds. Okay. So Crucible of Worlds, they have this listed in their reprinted cards that you'd probably want to put in there, and it's going to be showing up towards the top of the list on EDH Rec of cards that people are using in this deck.
Okay.
Well,
how do
that's
you feel
fine.
About that card?
So let's I guess introduce Vaevictis so that we can like, sort of contextualize this.
Yeah,
a little
that's
further.
probably a smart idea.
So Vaevictis Asmati the Dyer, he's 3 and Jund, so black, red, green, a flying elder dragon. He's a 6/6. It says whenever Vaevictis Asmati the Dyer attacks, for each player, choose target permanent that player controls. Those players sacrifice those permanents. Each player who sacrificed a permanent this way reveals the top card of their library, then puts it onto the battlefield if it's a permanent card.
And if it's not, it just stays there.
Yeah, if it's not, it just stays.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you're looking at Crucible of Worlds being on this list, you can kind of assume, okay, the person that's building that deck list
plans to target their lands.
Yeah, plans to sack their own lands to try and get other things into the battlefield.
All right.
But then you also see things such as, let me pull up the creatures that are listed on here. Find it.
I mean, that's not a crazy idea, right? Like,
no, it's absolutely not a crazy idea. But then you've got things like the Grave Titan, which, you know, in Commander is an objectively good card. And you can combo with it. We've talked about combos that involve the Grave Titan.
Yeah, there is.
The Grave Titan and the Crucible of Worlds really don't have anything to do with each other. The Grave Titan doesn't contribute anything to what the Crucible of Worlds wants to do. Right? So what I'm kind of seeing is there's 2 routes that people are building with. Kind of initially here, we're going to use lands to sacrifice and get other things in, or we're going to use tokens, which the Grave Titan provides tokens.
So are you saying that you wouldn't put both of these in the same deck?
I don't think that I would.
Saying pick a target that you plan to sacrifice.
Yeah, I think you need to pick a route. So when we're looking at this, I'm kind of like, yeah, we've got these things that don't really synergize very well. But if we plan on doing lands and then we want to grab that Crucible of Worlds, well, then you can grab the Gitrog monster, you can grab Life from the Loam, and you've sort of got this package that sort of starts to revolve. And I'll talk in more detail about that build later. But you've got this package that sort of revolves around that. And you start to find that like maybe when you're needing to make cuts for your deck, there's things that maybe don't have anything to do with each other. Like a Grave Titan.
So if I was like, okay, I'm gonna do lands.
Mm-hmm.
And I have Grave Titan in there, and I'm going through my list, and I encounter the Gitrog monster. Like, objectively, for the same CMC, the Gitrog monster serves me better.
Yes.
If I'm doing lands. But if I'm doing tokens, and I have the Gitrog monster,
you're probably not helping yourself.
He's probably got to go.
Yeah, like you've got this pattern of cuts that you need to make. And so that's what I'm getting at with this. Before I get into my own list that I've got for our listeners, there's some deck building principles that I think Vaevictis brings to the surface because he's new.
Yeah.
There's a couple different routes people are going with him, and you can have a diffuse deck if you're not careful, where you have stuff that doesn't interact with each other. And quite frankly, some of the stuff that you want to do in Vaevictis is really expensive And so you may be spending a lot of money on cards
Oh,
for something that doesn't work very
monetarily
well.
expensive.
Yeah,
And
like
probably on the CMC.
yeah, they are costly cards to have in your collection.
Huh.
So like I said, I've got this sort of idea of we're doing tokens or lands. I want to bring up a third idea.
There's a third. There's a third way
of what we can do with Vaevictis.
Okay.
There's this line in a Modest Mouse song. It goes something like, she was going with a videographer, but everybody knows that he's really a pornographer.
I mean, I feel like they were just trying to rhyme with that.
They kind of were.
I mean, if you listen to Modest Mouse,
It's true. But I think Vaevictis might actually be a known pornographer. He's just going to use people up and discard them.
okay.
Okay. Anyway, so the idea here is
You're like your context for stuff. You know, the whole like bunt cake thing with the mill and
I'm just like setting you up with like, what the fuck is Kyle talking about? So I want to, what I'm saying is that I think a good way or an interesting way that would be very interactive with Vaevictis is to put a lot of thieving type spells in your deck.
Okay.
So that you can steal other people's permanents and then sack their permanents for your own sack demand when Vaevictis attacks. And
right,
then
because you have to answer that.
you have to answer it as well. So you're sacking somebody else's shit, and they're kind of like, buh. And you get to put
pretty
something
cheeky.
in from off the top of your
I gotta
library.
admit, that's pretty cheeky. But how do you do it?
It's
How
a
do you do
good question.
Reliably.
So there's a series of sorceries and instants that you can use.
I don't know if that's going to be good enough, my friend.
It's true. There's some other things that we can use as well. So let's go through this. Go through the list of thievery spells. So active treason is kind of your bannerman of thievery. So it's 2 and a red.
What are we calling these spells? Because I think like they're called threaten effects.
Yeah.
The
so they're
original
actually
effect that did that was
so there
threaten,
is a card threaten.
which
So
doesn't make a lot of sense.
it is a little.
It is treason, is what it is.
To me, it is treason, active treason. But threaten
Okay.
and active treason, they're essentially the same, functionally the same card.
Okay.
So 2 and a red, untap target creature and gain control of it until end of turn. That creature gains haste until end of turn. So these are 2 sorceries that do that, where you can just take something and you do that in your first main phase. You go into combat with something you've stolen from somebody. Sack it off with Vaevictis. Get your own. Get something else. Other spells that can go along with this. There's Traitorous Blood. So 1 and 2 red. Gain control of target creature until end of turn. It gains trample
It's Raymond Swanland art.
and haste, and it is indeed a Raymond Swanland art. With this one, because it's getting trample, you might want to pick up something juicy. Like you might want to just use it rather than sack it. You can be flexible with these things. Using them or sacking them. Most likely you're going to be sacking most of the time. Besmirch, 1 and 2 red until end of turn, gain control of target creature, and it gains haste until end of turn. Untap and goad that creature. When would you ever use that in Commander?
That's not that bad though. Like
It's really not.
It essentially puts the card out twice.
Yes.
Like it's not attacking you. You gain control of it. You attack somebody with it. Let it go, and now it's not allowed to come. your
Now
way.
go attack when it's your turn.
Right. But in the case of what you're trying to do,
So what I'm trying to do is steal and sack.
Yeah.
But like I said, you might flexibly use these. Maybe somebody has something really juicy that you just want to use for a turn. So you can do that if necessary. Wrangle, 1 and a red. Gain
There's a
control.
card called Wrangle.
There is a card called Wrangle.
Huh.
Get out your Wrangler blue jeans, dude. We're gonna go wrangle us some creatures. Gain control of target creature with power 4 or less until end of turn. Untap that creature. It gains haste until end of turn. What was the percentage you were saying of like popular commanders?
I think I read somewhere that a lot of the most, I think it's like over 70% of the most popular commanders have a power of 4 and down, or toughness of 4 and down.
Yeah.
I think I'm feel pretty sure about that.
So most commanders are prone to wrangle. It might seem a little, not very good because you're like, oh yeah, I'm limited by, I can't take people's big stuff. But most commanders you can take with that one.
Yeah.
And sack it for them.
Right.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
You didn't need that, did you?
Well, then they have to sacrifice another permanent in this.
Yes, and they have to sacrifice
for one.
Exactly. So if there's
but then you use the card to gain control of it. So it's
kind of.
a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
It's basically, think of it as a lot of your spot removal is being replaced by these treason cards.
Yeah.
Or threaten cards, what have you.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, to this point, like, I've got one more instant that we want to hit up.
Active aggression.
So active aggression is good. Blind with anger is the one that I've got here. So it's 3 and a red. Untap target non-legendary creature, gain control of it until end of turn. That creature gains haste until end of turn. And so because this one's an instant, you can kind of flexibly use it if you need to, if you're feeling threatened.
Right. Active aggression's an instant as well, I think.
Yes, I think you're right. But this kind of goes against one of my principles that I talk about regularly. If you have permanents that can do something on a repeated basis,
Probably better for you.
it's probably better than having instants and sorceries with a lot of things. So that being said, there are a few that you can use to do this. Most of it is going to be instants and sorceries, but there are some. So one of them is Captivating Crew. So 3 and a red for a human pirate that's a 4/3.
Mm-hmm.
And they have an activated ability of you can pay 4. So this is kind of pricey to do this, but you take what you can get.
Take what you can get. That's like our motto lately about
Kind
a lot
of
of the
is,
card
right?
picks that we do. It's like, yeah, it's not, but you take what you can get.
You take what you can get. This is the track that I've chosen to go with this deck, and I got to find cards that fit into it.
Yeah.
So 3 and a red for the activated ability, gain control of target creature an opponent controls until end of turn. Untap that creature, it gains haste until end of turn. Activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery. So to have that strapped to a creature, yeah, it's kind of pricey. It may get in the way of you casting other things, but that's just kind of where we're going with this deck. Stealing people's stuff and going off, playing off the top.
Gotta take what you can get.
Exactly. There's 2 planeswalkers that are actually helpful in doing this as well. So Angrath, the Flame Chained.
Dope.
So he's 3 and Rakdos, so black-red. His up is each opponent discards a card and loses 2 life, which is actually kind of cool.
Yeah, it could happen.
I'll take that. He has a down 3, however, of gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap it gains haste until end of turn. Sacrifice at the beginning of the next end step if it has a converted mana cost of 3 or less. So you're going to sack it anyways. Not too worried about that.
Right.
But he has an ability that you can use depending on how it goes with the Planeswalker. At the very least, you've got it once, but you should be able to use it multiple times. Sarkhan Vol, so 2 and red and green. Has an up 1 of creatures you control get +1 and +1 and gain haste until end of turn.
This is the OG Sarkhan.
Yeah. Yeah. Then it has a down 2, gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap that creature, it gains haste until end of turn. I think both of these do. So Angrath's ultimate, which you may be interested in. Each opponent loses life equal to the number of cards in his or her graveyard. There's better decks for using that. You're mostly interested in stealing.
And you're pretty much trying to do their down loyalties every other turn.
Yeah, we're going to go up to kind of like get some benefit. Not too worried about the ultimate.
Right.
Because Sarkhan gets you some dragon tokens, which, could be nice. But we're more interested in thievery. That's largely the thievery package.
Do you have a Helm of Domination?
Yeah, so that's another one that you can use. I've got some other ones that
lets you sack a creature to gain control of target creature.
Exactly. So you can do that.
You can sack the creature you stole.
Right. So there's some other ones that we can do that are related, I guess, to these. Here's one that's actually really, really kind of a cool little combo to put to use.
Okay.
It's using an enchantment, Journey to Eternity, which you're going to want its flip side anyways. So Journey
Ixalan material in this.
There kind of is, huh? So Journey to Eternity is 1, a black and a green, and you enchant creature you control. So you do have to thieve it off of somebody.
Okay.
But says when enchanted creature dies, return it to the battlefield under your control. You can permanently take something from somebody.
Right.
And then you, of course, flip Journey to Eternity, and it becomes Atzal, Cave of Eternity, which is beneficial in this deck, where it has the 3 black and a green to tap it, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Or you can add mana of any color, but you're probably interested.
You're interested in that
reanimating,
like
with it.
Reanimation ability that you worked so hard for sure.
So that's kind of a fun little one. There's some other enchants that you'll want to use. Like you've recently talked about Animate Dead.
Hell yeah.
Where you can take something out of somebody's graveyard. So if you've caused some, you've picked something out for somebody to sacrifice, you can take it. Some of these ones that I'm going over now are maybe ways to steal stuff that you want to keep, not necessarily sack off, although it may be beneficial in that regard. In the same vein, Necromancy. So 2 and a black for another enchantment where you can steal something from a graveyard. Yeah.
Has flash too.
It does have flash. Andy's pointed that out. It's
Well, you might want to just do that
sexy.
because I think you have to exile it if it dies or something if you've done the flash.
Yeah, so when you play Necromancy, choose target creature card in your graveyard. When Necromancy comes into play, put that creature into play as though it were just played, and Necromancy becomes a creature enchantment that targets the creature. If Necromancy leaves play, bury the creature. So,
but there's a flash part.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're right. If you do bury it at the end of turn, so that's the thing. If you play it at instant speed.
Okay.
So yeah. If you're using it functionally to kind of as a sack outlet, you're going to end up sacking it at the end of turn anyway. So just use it for the instant speed. Choices, and it fits in the same mana cost as like an Act of Treason type spell. With that one, Animate Dead's 2, so a little cheaper. Some other things to kind of steal off of people, because I think you kind of want to roll with this theme. Like we're just taking stuff off the battlefield or out of the graveyard that people are doing. You might just consider taking stuff right off the top of their deck. So I included Etali Primal Storm in here.
Whoa, slow down.
I know, right? Gimme. We're getting greedy. 4 and 2 red. So whenever Etali Primal Storm attacks, exile the top card of each player's library. Then you may cast any number of non-land cards exiled this way without paying their mana cost. You kind of messed around with Etali a little bit, testing it out. I would imagine there's instances with Etali where you cast spells that maybe aren't necessarily useful to you, but you just have them.
Yeah, I mean it's all just good with him. But mine was the context of running it as a commander.
Sure,
so
you were using it as a commander,
like the other 99.
So to me, I kind of think with him, you're going to have whiffs, of course. There's going to be lands that come up, so you can't play those. There's instants and sorceries that'll come up that maybe that aren't relevant to you. But there's also going to be permanents that maybe aren't all that particularly relevant, but then they become your sack fodder that you can use for Vaevictis. Do you have a thought, Andy?
I'm trying to wrap my head around keeping this going for long enough, I think eventually you're going to have to sacrifice stuff that you didn't really steal.
No, I think you're right.
Is there anything in this deck that you've got that you're okay sacrificing? Should you not be in control of somebody else's stuff?
Yeah. So if we want to kind of get into that a little bit, I've put in a good number of mana dorks. So to me, I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm okay with losing those things. I think another example of something that you can kind of use to sort of this sort of overlaps that token strategy I'm talking about. So maybe I'm not following my own advice here.
Okay.
But I think this is actually really powerful. So a card like Felden of the Third Path. So he has the activated ability.
Yeah, that could work.
2 and a red, tap, create a token of that's a copy of target creature or card in your graveyard, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. It gains haste. Typically, with what Felden's saying, sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. In this case, you're making fodder for Vaevictis. So, you're right. I think that there are things that are going to be like that. There's some cards that I used as removal. So, for example, Reclamation Sage enters the battlefield, does its job.
Let's just use it as a sack target now. For
exactly.
Sure. Okay.
Another example would be Ravenous Chupacabra.
Another one.
Enters the battlefield, destroy target creature and opponent controls. So there's cards that kind of have these like functional ETBs.
Yeah.
And that's really all you're using them for. And I guess maybe let me back up. The reason I've put in cards like that rather than instant and sorcery spot removal spells is because I want Vaevictis to put them into play.
You want to be like run into accidentally dumping them in. Your own
So Vaevictis puts them into play, and rather than having some instant or sorcery spot removal, it's strapped to creatures that then become fodder. This is a principle I think that comes up quite a bit in Commander, that like you like to have. This is why you see cards like Ravenous Chupacabra and Reclamation Sage come up a lot in EDH decks, because you get a body out of them. Well, Vaevictis increases the value of that body because now they become the fodder when you don't have something you can steal or an ability to steal something from somebody. So yeah, I think you're right. Like, you're exactly right. There's going to be instances where you just end up with having to sack your own things.
Yeah.
Build things into your deck that can handle that. So the big thievery type stuff. Grave Betrayal. So just big enchantment. It's 5 and 2 black. Hopefully Vaevictis helps you put this one in.
Yeah, that you got that off of a trigger. That would be crazy.
That would be really nice. So you could.
People are going to freak out if they see that. Like,
oh
my God.
And of course you set up, like, if ideally you're going to set up something like Grave Betrayal. If it's in your hand, you set it up after you've got Vaevictis set up. If he puts it in, cool.
Yeah.
Anyways, whenever a creature you don't control dies, return it to the battlefield under your control with an additional +1/+1 counter on it at the beginning of the next end step.
It's really good with this strategy.
It's super good because you're going to be making everybody sack. So, and this is kind of like the climactic note of this whole thing. It That Betrays.
Oh, hell yeah.
So 12 mana, has Annihilator 2. Whenever an opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent, put that card onto the battlefield under your control. So those two are really like your big deals, right?
Yeah.
You're using Vaevictis to make people sack stuff off.
It's going downhill your way from now on.
And it's just coming all to you.
Sure.
Like, everybody's losing footing on the battlefield, and you're just gaining all of it.
God.
So those are like your two heavy hitters for this deck.
Okay.
And obviously you could potentially get them both cheated in. Here's where the deck gets expensive.
What are you planning? What are you going to tell me that this deck's getting expensive?
So
this janky strategy that you've decided on is going to get expensive.
So it is kind of janky to try and steal stuff from people.
For sure.
Sack their stuff off to get your own stuff into the battlefield.
Yeah.
You want really good paydays.
Okay.
So in order to do that, you need to sort the top of your library. The best way to do that is incredibly expensive. I'm going to go through those cards really quickly.
But prepare your ass.
Yeah, prepare your ass.
Prepare your ass for the cost of this.
This is going to make it a remarkably expensive deck if you try to do these cards. I do have some alternatives I'll go over after I go through them. But they're just objectively better. That's why they're expensive.
Yeah.
Sensei's Divining Top.
I mean, you know, it's been worse. It's been a lot worse.
It has. I bought my first one recently, actually. I've never owned one because it's an expensive card.
Yeah, sure.
1 mana. It's an artifact. It has an activated ability where you pay 1, look at the top 3 cards of your library, then put them back in any order. This is what you want to do before you go into combat with Vaevictis. Set up the top of your library. It also has the tap, draw a card, then put Sensei's Divining Top on top of it, its owner's library. You're probably not going to use that in the context of Vaevictis.
You can do it in response to somebody trying to remove it.
But you can do that.
that Vandal Blast or that Bane of Progress.
Exactly. So
No, not the
it's
top.
sort of a responsive type thing, but you're really here for that. Pay 1, look at the top 3.
Yeah,
That's what you're here for.
definitely. You're picking the best top 3 card, the best of those 3.
Yeah, exactly. Sylvan Library.
Oh God.
So 1 and a green. This one actually is probably the best one of these just cream of the crop cards for setting the top of your
Yeah.
library up. And so I'll explain why. So it's 1 and a green. Enchantment. At the beginning of your draw step, you may draw 2 additional cards. If you do, choose 2 cards in your hand drawn this turn. Okay, I misread that before. Choose 2 cards in your hand drawn this turn. For each of those cards, pay 4 life or put them back on the top of your library. I never mind what I just said about this is probably one of the better ones. But you can.
Well, it lets you look at the top 4.
It lets you look at the top 2, right? So you draw So you draw 3 cards at your draw step.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
And then
But if you want to keep them,
you've got to pay.
you got to pay. But otherwise, they just go back.
But you don't really care about that. Like if you really need to draw
With the
them,
top, it's crazy.
fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you just want to reset the top of your library
Right, yeah.
is all you're trying to do. So that's another one. Scroll rack is one that you're going to want to use. I actually didn't put it on my list because those 2 I actually own. But
Scroll Rack's up there. for
Scroll
sure.
Rack is a $35 card
Yeesh.
currently. It's 2 mana for an artifact. 1 tap, choose any number of cards in your hand and set those cards aside. Put an equal number of cards from the top of your library into your hand. Then put the cards set aside in this way on top of your library in any order. So honestly, yeah, retracting that past statement about the Sylvan Library, Scroll Rack is going to be your one because you can set things
Yeah, out of your hand.
out of
back
your
onto the
hand.
top of
So
your
if
library.
you ended up somehow
drawing
with some
something.
big CMC card in your hand, Scroll Rack allows you to get that on top of your library so you can kind of cheat around it. Like if the Betray accidentally got drawn, you can just set it on top instead with the Scroll Rack. Mary's Guile is another one.
That one is not cheap.
Yeah, this
That
is
card is crazy. That card is it's like 1 mana, isn't it?
yeah,
or
it's
something?
1 mana for an enchantment. This is a $30 card.
Good lord.
So during your upkeep, you may look at the top 3 cards of your library and put them back in any order. So you see what I'm saying? Like just mentioning like 4 cards, that puts you at like $150 or like something like that, just to get those 4 cards.
okay, but like give me an alternative to this. Like
Well, I've got a couple others, and then I'll get to some alternatives. So Oracle of Moldiah is another one that
how
you'll
much is
probably
she now?
that one's over 30.
Jeez.
So Oracle of Moldiah, 3 and a green. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. This
So good.
will go into your land route if you're playing that deck. But it's just good
Yeah,
generally
she's
here.
really good.
Play with the top card of your library revealed. You may play the top card of your library if it's a land card. So it's
Really good for
objectively
this.
good in Commander.
Yeah.
It's pretty useful here because if it's a land, your Vaevictis trigger
You don't want to hit it. Yeah. That's
is not going to
one
put a
you're
land into
excited
play.
to
Like
hit.
you just want to play your lands
Right.
in so you can get something more valuable into play. Worldly Tutor is another really good pick for this deck. So if you'll recall with Worldly Tutor, it puts that card on top of the library.
Vampiric Tutor too.
Yeah. So those tutors, like you're putting them on top of the library
They will be the next card.
and they'll be the next card. So you just know. A cheap one that is useful here would be Haunted Crossroads.
What is that?
This is a 50-cent card.
Huh.
So it's an enchantment, 2 and a black, and it has an activated ability of pay a black, put target creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. So this kind of launches into what I think is your budget alternative to doing this. Do you want to have Haunted Crossroads in? I think either way, it's a good card. Like if you're using those expensive
Pretty
cards,
cool.
use Haunted Crossroads because you're going to have stuff die. And if you end up sacking your own stuff, you can, or somebody removes them, you can put them back on top of the library, which is pretty nice. But what you want to do alternatively, I think, is use stuff that allows you to peek at the top of the library or view the top of your library. So examples of this would be Courser of Crufix or the Vizier of the Menagerie. Those 2 have you play with the top card of your library revealed, right? So you know what's coming, Doesn't help you get rid of it, but you know what's coming. So I would suggest things like putting dredge to your use here. Especially if you're running a reanimator package, which isn't an unreasonable thing to do, I think, with Vaevictis.
Well, yeah, the colors definitely support it.
Yeah.
At least the green and black part.
Well, yeah, and I think it's just the strategy being like you should assume that you're going to sacrifice some of your own permanents that you want to keep out, and you should also assume other people will remove them.
Yeah.
So with those types of cards where you're peeking at the top or you're looking at the top, including cards that have dredge in them, this is a particularly good pick to go with it. Golgari Thug. So it's 1 and a black. When Golgari Thug dies, put target creature card from your graveyard on top of your library.
Oh, surprise, surprise.
So he sets the top of your library for you when you've got something juicy in your yard. It also has dredge 4. So if you've got something that's not looking very good on top of your library, you can, instead of going to draw,
push it away.
You can push it away with your dredge. You kind of have to get a little tricky with making that work out, but it's sort of a gamble to a degree. But if you're just seeing something that you're not necessarily going to put to use, you can put the dredge to use.
Right.
Of course, scrying would be a really, really good option as well. So there's 2 cards that I think you really should just put into your graveyard that do scry, or put into your deck that do scrying.
Crystal Ball.
Yes, Crystal Ball is definitely one of them, but there's 2 in particular that I think have a really strong synergy with the deck. I have Crystal Ball on my list. But Reaper of the Wilds.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
So Reaper of the Wilds is 2, a black and a green. Whenever another creature dies, scry 1.
Yeah.
This is actually really useful in the context of Vaevictis because stuff dies if you've got something on the top.
Right.
You're peeking or
individual moments of scrying stuff away.
Exactly.
Cool.
You're perfectly set for it.
Another Death Touch, isn't it?
It is Death Touch. So I should actually talk about this creature besides
favorite.
that. It's a 4/5. You can actually activate it to become Death Touch. So you can pay black to make it Death Touch.
Never mind. Dog shit.
Fuck, dude. Oh, fuck. You can also pay 1 and a green, and Reaper of the Wilds gains hexproof until end of turn. So if you really need to protect that segment of your strategy, you can do so.
Somebody get that spell out. He's scrying when things die.
I know, right?
We've got to put a stop to that.
Fuck! He's filtering.
Get it.
Let's see. There was an enchant, I think, that does a similar thing. Maybe I just don't have it on my list. Catacomb Sifter is another one, does functionally the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
So it's an Eldrazi. It's 1 green black, though it doesn't have color because it's devoid.
It's devoid, dude. It's an Eldrazi. They're devoid of color.
You know? So when Catacomb Sifter enters into the battlefield, put a 1/1 colorless Eldrazi Scion creature token on the battlefield. Fodder, yay. It also has whenever another creature you control. So it's not global at like the other one, but it's whenever a creature you control dies, scry 1. So that does work with stealing somebody else's creature, though. I control it.
Yeah.
So let's use it.
You cheeky bastard.
Shadows of the Past.
What does that one do?
Let me pull this one up. So Shadows of the fucking Past. 1 in black. It's an enchantment. Again, whenever a creature dies, scry 1.
Oh.
So it's an enchantment.
How much is it?
It's just 2 mana. Has an activated ability as well if you just really need a mana sink. 4 and a black. Each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Activate this ability only if there are 4 or more creatures in your graveyard. There's a high probability that will be the case. Andy mentioned the Crystal Ball. Tap and scry, right? I think you scry 2 with that one.
Scry 2. So
that can actually be really nice and useful
for
for
poor
you.
man's Sensei's Divining Top.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. You can this would be a suggestion if you're going the route of doing tokens.
Okay.
But I would suggest using Viscera Seer.
Oh,
so you can sack a creature and scry. In that case, you probably can pretty much guarantee, like if you're tokening effectively, you can guarantee that you can set yourself up for a good drop every time. And then Lifecrafter's Bestiary is another one that would be, I think.
Oh yeah, your upkeep, you
useful
with that one.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's it. The other thing with Lifecrafter's Bestiary that I think is important is whenever you cast a creature spell, you may pay green if you do draw a card. So, yeah, like it's sort of like I said, there's that expensive set of cards. If you have those in your collection, or some of those in your collection, or if you have a massive budget, if you don't care about credit card debt,
Oh God,
go ahead and grab those cards and add them to your deck, because they're objectively better. But
yeah,
but you know, you can get around it. There is a budget option. Another thing I think you need to consider when you're building Vaevictis is you want to be able to get to everything.
What do you mean?
As in, I don't want anything to have hexproof. I need to be able to target your shit.
Oh, when you're okay, so you're talking about like this theft strategy.
Yeah,
you're gonna talk about Arcane Lighthouse.
Well, and it's not just theft strategy. It's even if you're not doing the thieving, you want to be able to target all the juiciest shit to satisfy Vaevictis's basmati rice demands.
Yeah, because you get to choose what the opponents have to sacrifice.
Like he wants only the tastiest curries to go on his rice.
That's true, dude.
So
he wants the butter chicken, the tikka masala,
exactly.
The bacon bartha, your favorite.
Exactly. So we need cards that allow us to get at anything. A card that is so deeply awesome for this deck is just Archetype of Endurance.
Oh yeah.
So 6 and 2 green. It's your enchantment creature boar that's a 6/5, but what's of interest is creatures you control have hexproof, and of particular interest, creatures your opponents control lose hexproof and can't have or gain hexproof.
Because Nago was a beautiful beast. And he was a pure warrior from the boar tribe.
Fucking right. So yeah, you want the Archetype of Endurance. Yes, let me get up on my little pedestal and talk about Arcane Lighthouse.
Yeah, here we go again.
Andy.
You in this land.
I was convinced when this came out. I was like, fuck. It doesn't matter anymore. We can't use hexproof and shroud. There's this land that just gets around it.
Yeah.
We're fucked.
But nobody gives a shit.
Pretty much nobody uses it. And people put it in. I've noticed this happen in our play group. People put it in their deck and they forget what it does. They just use it for mana. And
God, I wish this thing
we're all just like,
green.
shit, I wish we could get at his commander, but he's got those fucking boots on it. And somebody's sitting there with an Arcane Lighthouse tapped down.
But you know, that requires that somebody say, I have a removal spell. Would you activate it?
It's true.
That's the thing, is like you take a risk. You have to activate 2 mana sources to expose it.
Yeah. Somebody want to use it?
Anything? Dope. Well, I'm passing because I'm short on mana now.
I need to use it. Yeah, no. So that's definitely one. Did you know there was actually a functionally the same card that was released in M19?
What? That strips?
I don't think we noticed this when we were doing our review. It's called Detection Tower.
Huh?
So 1 and tap. Until end of turn, your opponents and creatures your opponents control with hexproof can be the targets of spells and abilities you control, as though they didn't have hexproof.
Yeah. There's also the glaring spotlight.
There is the glaring spotlight.
Don't you have to sacrifice it?
You have to sacrifice it
to make your stuff
hexproof.
And unblockable.
Right.
Right?
Right. So let me pull it up. So yeah, you can pay 3, sacrifice it, and creatures you control gain hexproof until end of turn and are unblockable. But its kind of static ability is creatures your opponents control with hexproof can be the targets of spells and abilities you control as though they didn't have hexproof.
What's the CMC?
So that one is 1
That's
to get
not
it
that
out.
bad of a card, honestly.
It's really a good card.
I might actually say like that could be more functional than the Rogue's Passage.
Yeah.
Because the cost of activating Rogue's Passage is the land itself plus 4 more.
Yeah, it's 5 mana to get
I mean,
one.
it is a land, which is a fairly protected permanent.
Sure.
But this thing is just always turned on.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I don't know, let's say at one moment, I don't know.
If you have like a really going wide strategy, this could be a game winner for you.
Yeah, it's like they're unblockable.
Everybody gets through and you can't touch them.
I mean, I'm a sucker for 1 mana artifacts. I
It's
just am.
Yeah.
You know?
They're tasty, right?
I just am.
One more of this I need to get at your shit stuff.
Okay.
It's an enchantment. It's 1 and a green. It's called Bonds of Mortality.
Oh, yeah.
So when Bonds of Mortality enters the battlefield, draw a card. Fucking yeah.
Yeah, so it replaces itself.
And it also has an activated ability, pay green. Creatures your opponents control lose hexproof and indestructible
That's hot.
until end of turn.
That's hot.
So, yeah, I mean, this is one I don't think we really see all that much, but it's
It's from Tarkir, isn't it?
it's from fuck.
It's newer.
It is newer. It's from Oath of the
Newer.
Gatewatch. Is this set it
Oh,
came
yeah.
from?
This is the set no one gave a shit about.
Yeah, I was on Walkabout.
Were you? When that was going down?
Either then or like right after. I didn't buy very many cards from it, if any. We were still into boosters. Fuck boosters. Yeah, so here's just a couple miscellaneous cards that I think might be of interest. And then let's talk about these other strategies, namely being planning to sack lands or planning to sack tokens.
Okay.
But just some kind of miscellaneous cards. Aid from the Cowl. So this is an enchantment. It's 3 and 2 green, and it has Revolt. At the beginning of your end step, if a permanent you controlled left the battlefield this turn, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a permanent card, you may put that on the battlefield. Otherwise, put it on the bottom of your library. So with this one, you're making it so that you essentially are going to get 2 permanents out of Vaevictis' 1 trigger rather than just 1. Sign me up. I'm into it.
Yeah, that's more is better for sure.
It's true.
Off of every activation.
Less is not more in this case. I just kind of have an interest in this one. This may actually be a cuttable card, but I want to use it. Sunbird's Invocation. It's another enchantment. So 5 and red. Whenever you cast a spell from your hand, reveal the top X cards of your library, where X is that spell's converted mana cost. You may cast a card revealed this way with converted mana cost X or less without paying its mana
your
cost.
top deck manipulation, that's not a bad idea.
It's really not, and that was kind of my justification. I think if you're kind of setting up the top of your library, you shouldn't whiff most of the time with something like that. Aggravated Assault is something people will definitely be interested in putting in their decks, so you can get multiple combats.
Right.
I'll be honest with you. I actually didn't put it in my list, probably because I'm just a dumb asshole. But I was just kind of like, I want to stick with my sort of cute thing. I think when you put in a card like Aggravated Assault, it sort of sends a message, at least in my mind, of I'm serious as fuck.
Sure.
And you need to undo me.
Yeah.
And I don't really want to send that message. Strionic Resonator, though, so you can double up on the triggers.
That's good.
I don't know if it's necessary, but you know what? Balls to the wall. Grave Pact and Dictate of Erebos. You're making people lose.
That's going to be annoying to resolve.
So many fucking permanents already.
Sure.
I don't know if you actually need. I mean, it might just lock the game, is what it might do.
Yeah.
But they're definitely cards that would make your deck very good. Revel in Riches.
Well, it gives you stuff to sacrifice, I guess.
Well, it gives you stuff to
treasures.
sacrifice, but I think you could probably just. I mean, I'm anticipating that most of the time, if your play group is savvy, the best way to use Revel in Riches is just to get mana. To be like, look, I'm not interested in using this to win the game.
What I like about Revel in the Riches is that, unlike Black Market, there's now like what the mana is separated from the enchantment.
Right.
Rather than there's charge counters landing on it, like the mana is now on the artifacts that can be eaten.
It's true.
So it's not just a one card answer to a huge
and
Black Market.
And the other thing too is that like the mana is immediately available to you, right?
Yeah, it is.
Like if I have you guys sack off 3 creatures, I'm going to get 3 charge counters on my Black Market. That's not available to me till the next turn.
Yeah. I mean, you can argue that because Revel in Riches only goes off of your opponent's creatures dying, like
sure,
your potential to control it is a lot lower.
It's lower,
but I don't know I'm just saying what I like about it. Not really like the "Hey, I win" button that's attached to it. The win button. It's more the artifacts are separated from the enchant, so somebody can't just deny you both at the same time.
I mean, if you're playing in a 4-player game, you're going to get 3 artifacts for
this
for Vaevictis attacking once.
Okay.
Yeah, if you choose creature, of course. So that's kind of it in terms of just kind of the build that I've done and just some suggestions for setting up the top of your library. Obviously, if you can pick the expensive ones, do.
Pretty sick. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, and I think it's just it's super interactive, right?
I can see that going down, being like, wait, okay, what?
Right?
You know, well, I'm gonna destroy that for you, and then my own choice will be, you know, what I've taken from you. I don't really need it.
Yeah, I mean, it was cool, but
it's not for me.
It's not for me.
This Darksteel Forge it's not for me.
Let's just sacrifice that shit.
If you can gain control.
But you're going to get something off the top of your library. And, you know, then the Mizzix player is like, gee, thanks.
I'd be saying that every time that dragon attacked. You know, this, what is this? Command tower? It's not for you.
It's not for you. It's a super interactive deck. And I think that's why I'm excited about Vaevictis because you're really impacting the way everybody plays. And it's just, I don't know. I think it's in terms of, I guess what I would say, because you need to have your, you know, like your removal and all that kind of stuff and your stuff that gives you some card advantage and those types of things. And there's objectively really good cards at the betrays, you know, Grave Betrayal, like that
those
you
fall in
want to have in your deck. But you can really kind of like choose your own adventure with a lot of the permanents. I would just suggest you pick mostly permanents for your deck.
Yeah.
Because Vaevictis puts in permanents.
Yeah, that's an easy synergy. Like it's the word.
Like it's just kind of like, this is what I've done, but it's really like this commander is choose your own adventure. Let's choose another adventure here and talk about it really quickly.
You've come up to a door. One is red. One is blue. Turn to page 37 for the red door. Turn to page 425 for the blue door.
What's on the other side?
You ever read a Choose Your Own Adventure book?
I remember those as a kid. They were
dope. The Goosebump ones?
Yeah.
The one, did you read the one that go to the carnival?
No.
Yeah, that one was...
Dude, fucking Goosebumps, man. The Beast from the East.
What? Is that Godzilla?
That was one of the books.
He had a one called Beast from the East.
Uh-huh.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Okay. Lands. So you can do some things to kind of set yourself up to where you benefit greatly from land play.
Okay.
Here's the problem, though. We're recording this. We'll release this episode, and then within a couple days, we will know about a Jund Precon commander that's supposed to be around lands.
Yes, that is likely to eclipse whatever you're going to do with this.
So, I will put these cards.
What? Stay true to yourself, Kyle.
Yeah, it's true.
You know?
It's true.
Stay true.
I will put this out there because it looks like this is what people are kind of doing. It's just sort of tragic timing.
Yeah,
I think. It is what it is, though.
So I made the case about that artifact commander, the Psy guy, from the same set that I said he was a little late to the party because Jehoira exists.
Right.
But now we're getting another artifacts commander, so he was too early.
Yeah, and right.
Now this guy is a little too early to the Jund party.
I think what's happening here is kind of like You ever go to like a mortuary and there's multiple funerals going on
I
at
don't
the same
really go to
time?
mortuaries. How many funerals do you go to?
My grandma died a few months ago and I just noticed this.
Oh, okay.
So like mortuaries have multiple chapels, right? And you show up.
Yeah, I mean,
And,
it's
like-
economically feasible for them to run multiple
Yeah,
funerals.
they're running multiple funerals at the same time.
Sorry, we
It's
can't
like
do your funeral today. This chick died yesterday.
yeah, I mean they have more money.
But we can get you in 3 weeks from now.
It's like showing up and like you ignore the signs and you just walked into the wrong funeral, the wrong party. You know, like that's Vaevictis is just like he got to the wrong party. You know, sorry, man. Okay, so the land strategy, which I think is actually I honestly think the land strategy is probably going to be more effective than what I just presented. More steady, more solid, less easy to. It'll be easier to maintain.
Well, and the value is just so high with that. I mean, you're dropping a land
right.
that's honestly fairly easy to recur with.
Oh yeah.
With a short list of
Yeah.
cards, and then you could potentially get something way doper.
Yeah. So as mentioned, like one of your primary cards on that is going to be Crucible of Worlds that
Sure.
allows you to just play lands from your graveyard.
Yeah.
Life of the Loam allows you to dredge and pull 3 lands. You know, pull it back to your hand and you can play 3
And
lands.
Throw $70 away to get land
Yeah.
out of your graveyard.
Yeah,
between those
exactly.
2 cards for sure.
Look at your Gitrog monster list. Basically, like there's a lot of stuff in there that you can just plug right into this deck.
Add red.
And add red. So with that, we can add things like Omnath,
Yeah.
Locus of Rage. And this is something that maybe can get cheated in by Vaevictis because he's 3 and then 2 red and 2 green, so 7 mana. Has landfall whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control. Put a 5/5 red and green elemental creature token on the battlefield.
Busted. Yeah.
And then it says whenever Omnath or another elemental you control dies, Omnath deals 3 damage to target creature or player. So this kind
You
of
could easily trigger that with
you can
your
trigger with
dragons and
Vaevictis.
hits. Yeah.
The other thing that you can, if you're going to do something like this, I would imagine you're probably bordering on the point where you need to consider using Ashnod's Altar as well.
Yeah.
Of course, Titania is another one that's going to be giving you tokens for land plays.
I think she gives you like, what are they, like 5/3 or
Yeah, so she gives you
something.
5/3 elementals, so it goes along with Omnath as well.
returns.
So she's 3 and 2 green. When she enters the battlefield, return target land card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Whenever a land you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, create a 5/3.
This is sounding pretty compelling to stick with the lands.
Yeah, the lands one is
Projecty.
like I said. I'm not gonna try and pull like the wool over people's eyes and tell you that my Thievery Corporation build.
Thievery Corporation.
is-
Oh my! You named it Thievery Corporation.
Yes, dude.
Your hipster level is painful.
But yeah, like I don't want to delude myself into saying like that's better than this land build. This land build is going to get you
Pretty
tons of value.
Yeah, pretty far.
Tons of value. So yeah, these are just some pieces you'll want to put Azusa in there so you can just play additional lands. A Gitrog monster, of course, does that. Oracle of Moldiah, we've mentioned, just goes insane now. It's not just helping you kind of filter the top of your deck a little bit,
You're planning.
but it's also just playing things out and getting you fodder. Courser of Krufix obviously needs to be a part of that as well. I would include Minna and Den in your build. Minna and Den, Wildborn, so 2, a red and a green. You may play an additional land on each of your turns, so we're getting these additional land plays. Then it has the activated ability to pay a red and a green, return a land you control to its owner's hand. Target creature gains trample until end of turn. So yeah, I mean, just additional land plays from that really is like kind of your big thing. I don't know. I would throw in fucking Vorinclex while we're at it. Let's just throttle up our ability to just
Why not? Let's hit that guy into play. Just like, look, man, he was at the top.
yeah.
He's a
I'm getting a lot out of my mana and you're not going to see
Yeah.
yours. So, Borborygamos, the Enraged, it's really good here as well. So whenever
Is
it
he? Is he? He's like, what is he, 9
Well-
mana or something like that? He's kind of
I shouldn't say really good.
okay.
It's okay. But whenever he deals combat damage, reveal the top 3 cards of your library. Put all land cards revealed this way into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. So you're going to get into more lands, I guess, that you can play.
Yeah.
Discard a land and he can deal 3 damage to target creature or player. So it's
If you're playing from your yard,
yeah,
the lands.
yeah. World Shaper is going to dominate.
Oh yeah.
Here.
Oh yeah.
So when the World Shaper dies and you have a way of making him die, bring all your lands from your graveyard back in. There's a really
I'm liking this, like turning, maybe even possibly thinking about turning the lands into creatures, like Rude Awakening.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
there's definitely that. So this is a very strong strategy, I think, and there's a lot that you can put into it. I mean, Burgeoning you can toss in there and just keep yourself going. Avenger of Zendikar would be a really big, awesome piece for you. And Avenger of Zendikar gives you all of these plants that you can now use, so you don't even necessarily need to keep sacking lands at that point.
But that token strategy aligns well with the land strategy.
Yeah. So and that's what I say. You kind of want to ask yourself that question, because clearly some of these land things, they're producing tokens. And I think it's important to kind of remind yourself which strategy you're going with, because there are some.
Try not to do all.
Yeah.
If you can avoid it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so I think a good example of this would be, I think it's called the Dragon Lair Spider.
Okay.
Are
we talking tokens?
So
now?
I kind of want to delineate the token conversation here.
Yeah.
So the Dragon Lair Spider, so it's 2 red, 2 green. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, create a 1/1 green insect creature token. Okay, so this doesn't interact with the land play. Even though the land play is producing tokens for you, you can kind of maybe get a little carried away, going with stuff like Dragon Lair Spider. Cool. If you're just doing the token strategy, which again, I think is lesser than the land route. But this would be an objectively good card if you're just trying to produce shit tons of tokens. Use those as your fodder to Vaevictis.
Dragon Broodmother too.
Exactly.
Right.
Dragon Broodmother is another good option. I would include, like I mentioned, Grave Titan, Bitter Blossom, just upkeep into the token that you need to sack off to get something off the top of your library. There's kind of these routes that I think you can go with. Overseer of the Damned would be another really good card to put in if you're doing the tokening. I think it's actually just a generally good card for this deck. So 5 and 2 black, when Overseer of the Damned enters the battlefield, may destroy target creature. And it also says whenever a non-token creature an opponent controls dies, put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield tapped. So you're going to get zombies out of that one from the death that it's occurring on the battlefield. I would if you're doing the tokens, something like Endrick Sar would be useful. He's getting you his thralls. Ophiomancer would be really solid because you can just keep getting that snake back. I kind of saw some people putting Tempt with Vengeance in their list. I think that might be an okay pick.
Because people could pick the tokens.
Right.
But you don't need to pick their tokens.
Yeah, when I'm picking stuff with Vaevictis, I don't need to pick your tokens. It might be a little
head game.
Yeah, I'm giving people tokens and they're thinking that I'm going to choose those to sack off. And then, no, that's not at all happening. Mm-hmm. You're only going to have tokens when we're done.
Yeah. Potentially.
So, yeah, I mean, that's briefly kind of that route. Those different routes to go. Thievery Corp, land sack, tokens. I don't know. What do you think, Andy?
I think this deck list that you came up with really speaks to how you like to play this game. You like to plan.
I do like to
for
plan.
Sure. With all that top deck manipulation.
Yeah. Which you will want to use, I think, in any other Vaevictis list. You're going to want to plan.
See, I don't think I would.
You don't think so?
No, I just load it full of extra combats. I just don't fucking care what we
I'm just going in.
Because the new thing comes out, I'll just remove it. You know,
fine.
The next thing comes out, whatever, I'll buy another combat, remove that. No one's going to be attached to anything. This is how I would do it.
Sure.
So I'd be the Nether Trader,
Yeah. And then reassembling skeleton and those types of things.
Even the guy that you can do through raid, because normally I'm not hesitant to use that.
Sure.
What is it, the blood-soaked champion?
Oh,
I'm hesitant because I don't attack a lot. But if I'm gonna do this guy, I'm like, I'm sending that dragon as much as I can. Oh, cool! I got a Dark Steel Forge. Dope.
Thanks.
I'm attacking again. We're losing the Dark Steel Forge. Oh, I got my Con Sphinx. Well, I'm moving to my next combat. Let's get rid of that too. Like I'm just eliminating
and
just
that
churning.
So that is something that probably should be mentioned here, which I have not addressed at all in this conversation. You might help people a lot.
But then you just come back and remove it.
And that's why, exactly, you just come back and remove it. But that's why the extra combats they're going to rise to the top with this deck, with the deck list that come with this. Because if you put in something key for somebody else, you can just turn around and go take it out.
My thought for that is that, if I was going to take this deck on, it probably has if I built it, it would have a way higher chance of backfiring than yours.
Sure.
I could whiff more.
Sure.
With mine, for sure. But I think I would load it with, the recursive creatures that are low to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, combat celebrant type effects where I'm just buying as many combats as I can get.
Yeah. And
then maybe add something like Vicious Shadows.
Okay.
So anytime a creature dies, that person loses health equal to how many cards they have in their hand.
Oh yeah.
So it's just spooling. It's just spinning out of control.
So you're pulling life totals down as you're just doing what you're doing.
My thought is that you don't have to hit the same person to interact with their board. Let's say a wall goes up where I'm not able to safely attack with Vaevictis. We'll just go over here and over there and remove. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean you're always going to just go with the safe attack.
Yeah, like
with Vaevictis.
Somebody is going to be unblocked. Right. Somebody's getting unblocked. Right. So I'm going to remove that.
Not everybody at the table has the ability to deal with a 6/6 flyer. For sure.
Do you have trample?
No.
Does he have to connect or is it just
no? It's whenever he attacks.
Oh, well, then it doesn't.
For each player,
it doesn't even matter.
Choose target permanent.
Yeah,
you just need to be. You're only concerned about being safe enough that he survives.
Yeah, sure.
That's all.
That's how I'd do it. But then again, really high margin of like. I could walk somebody into a combo on accident.
Well, and I think
for sure,
but I think it's valid. You know, like I think what you're saying is totally valid. I just think if you're picking that route, like if there's a principle aside from like here's Kyle's weird deck list that he came up with, that I think people should walk away from this conversation with, it's that pick a route and stay with it.
Yeah, I think if you built yours like your deck. And you were like, man, I really like this like idea of stealing people's stuff, then sacking it away for fun and profit, right?
Sure.
I'd probably look at Sequar.
That's a good call.
Because he just says like, anytime you have a creature of yours die, you get a 3/1 Graveborn creature with haste. I think is what it says. Right?
Yeah, it's a 3/1. Yeah, Graveborn.
Yeah. So the idea is that you do exactly what you're up to. Strip out. The top deck manipulation.
Sure.
Right. I'm just saying, like, if you like the Thievery Corporation thing, and then this Jund guy comes out in the fall in August or whatever, and we're like, I don't know. You're just kind of trying to make two decks out of one, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, try Sequar out.
Sequar's pretty cool. It's kind of a forgotten one because it was was it Commander, like, was that 20?
Well, weirdly, I think he's from the same set that Zura came from.
Yeah.
The very, very original. And then, they reprinted him and gave him some cool art.
Yeah.
He's one of the only 2 Orc legends in the game.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Orc Shaman. But it's kind of a forgotten legend, I think. It's a good card.
Yeah.
But I think what you're saying is perfectly awesome. I would use that.
There's for your Thievery Corporation setup.
Yeah.
I can't believe I keep having to say Thievery Corporation. Damn it.
It just makes sense.
I know, it does.
Anyway, that's fucking Vaevictis, dude.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's really like off your...
Yeah, Jun's kind of out of my wheelhouse.
What's the red? Jun's a hard one. Jun's a hard color combo for sure.
Well, I mean, because I've done one Rakdos deck. I've never done Gruul.
But you have Golgari.
I do have Golgari.
Yeah.
I'm into Golgari.
I think that's why you didn't want to go the land direction, is because
I have the Gitrog monster.
Teddy Gitrog already.
Which maybe, I don't know. Like I said, I think there's some evolutionary things in play right here because we know there's a deck coming. in Jund
that has lands.
has lands.
That's why this is a little bit more.
Yeah, so this is kind of like, let's take something that's
prescient.
sort of asking for lands and maybe try something different, or just talk about that strategy because it's going to be a deal that you need to be aware of. Anyway.
Yeah, Jund lands have been something asked for a bit. I guess it's a wish that's finally being granted.
Yeah. You thank your fairy godmother for that one. Just hope that nobody wrecks your pumpkin. Vaevictis is cool though. Like I think he's just what I think is cool about him, because I think I
just like the chaos.
There's a lot of
who the fuck knows? I'm going in.
Yeah, there's a lot of chaos to it. It's really interactive and it's strange. It's not so bad to where you're doing what's the enchant that, like, when you go to cast a spell, like you just go down until you find a spell of the same type.
Oh, possibility
storm. It's not
shit, you could jam that in.
You could jam it in there, but
crazy extra combats.
But it's not like unfun like possibility storm.
Sure.
You know, you're getting people's hopes up. They're like, "Oh shit, you just put something cool on the battlefield for me, like that I wouldn't have been able to put out at this point." And
it could whiff though.
And it could whiff, or you could just really hurt people. Like
yeah.
People don't know they're going to Vegas when they're playing with you in Vaevictis, dude. And
for sure.
And I think it's kind of a fun thing.
Yeah, they could just reveal like a sorcery or something.
Yeah, and it just stays.
Okay, bye.
Like you just lost something.
Yeah,
Bummer.
I don't know. I just want him in combat more often. That's my whole thing. Like getting him into combat as often as I could get him.
I get that.
I'm a simpleton.
The other thing to me about Vaevictis though is that because there's so many different paths you can go with him, I think he would be a fun commander to have, because you can build something and you can tweak it and hone that in. And once you're kind of like, if you're over that strategy, there's other strategies you can use him for. You don't have to stay in the same place.
For sure.
Which I like. I like commanders like that, where it's not just this one simple thing that I try to accomplish with it and that's it. Like this guy, he has some cool stuff.
Stuff that's like they're more open. They don't need, you know, like all these cards or this commander is only ever going to do this one thing.
Yeah.
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 It's kind of what I'm feeling from Mizzix for sure.
Yeah. Which is a bummer.
So specific what she wants to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
All right, dude.
Dope, dude. I'm into it. I'm into it. Other dragons. Are we going to try to cover any of the other Elder Dragons? Do you feel obligated because it's Elder Dragon Highlander?
No.
You don't feel obliged to do it.
Do you?
I mean, I would like to try to come up with something clever for Nikki B.
I think Nicol Bolas is one that we should.
Yeah, the rest of them either have already been covered at length, especially the
not Chromium, Arcades.
Yeah.
Has been covered.
And Chromium.
Chromium can go fuck himself as far as I'm concerned.
Shit.
Like, I know there's people that are like into Chromium because he's just he's an Elder Dragon, and B, he's just weird. I have no interest.
You're just not into it.
I have no interest.
Okay. And then the one that I'm really not thinking about, like, it just with what's coming down the pipe, we're not that desperate for content.
Yeah, we don't need content, so Palladium Moors can just go
to cover Palladium Moors. Yeah, all right.
Palladium Moors is kind of like that, you know, staying on the wrong party topic. Like they're the guest that shows up that you're like, who the fuck invited them?
What is the trauma with you and going to parties? Like with the bunt cake party thing that turned into an orgy. This whole thing about showing up
to the wrong funeral.
Yeah, like there's some trauma in there about
I'm like
arriving at parties.
I'm an introvert. I was never meant to go to a party.
We're on the internet, Kyle. Like, how introverted are you really?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that who's talking to me or talking with us and listening to us and watching us. I don't know.
That makes the difference. You don't know what's on the top of their deck.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, cool.